Joining me now on the show is Darian Weeks, who will be taking on Donavan Beard next January the 18th at Shamrock FC 360. Darian, it's been a minute. Nice to talk to you again.
Nice to see you again, my man.
Obviously on the road, finishing up a hard sparring session, I imagine. What has camp been like for you thus far?
Camp's been good. It's always really been good. I got a lot of good group of guys around me here in Sedalia and in Columbia, Missouri. So, we've got to float back and forth against St. Louis, Missouri as well at St. Charles of Bay. So we've had a good session. I've been actually, I've been in and out of camp for about like 6 months now. I had a couple fights that I was supposed to have that fell through. Some guys in Canada I was supposed to fight that fell through, and then a guy for APFC that I was supposed to fight for a title that actually fell through. So we've been pretty staying pretty much staying up on training. So I'm in great shape.
Staying locked in and ready. And as I mentioned before we started the interview, man, you're on a three-fight win streak now. What has that done for your confidence after, climbing the mountain, making it to the UFC, and then having that rough stretch there?
Yeah, I mean, making it to the UFC was I mean, it's where you want to go, that's the pinnacle, so it was a little distracting not getting to what we wanted to do, you know what I mean? It kind of threw you off the game plan just a little bit. Um, you can't be as cautious, and that's what I was in the UFC. I was a little too cautious in my fights before the UFC, and then my fights after. Um, I get now. I don't want to say reckless, but I go for it a little more, and I should have pressed that button then when I was in the UFC. But it just nobody gets anywhere by taking the safe road, and that's what I did. But it's okay. Yeah, we're out of there now. I still keep in contact. My management team still keeps in contact with Dana White and Sean Shelby. And they're still looking to put me in there. So being on this three-fight win streak just puts me at better odds. So hopefully, after this fight or after another one, we're back on the big stage, and then we won't make the same mistake twice.
Do you feel like, you were given a fair shake? Because it's not like you were losing to chumps in the UFC. I mean, you fought Ian Gary. That fight with Johan was super, super close. I feel like, it could have gone either way. And then, Brian Barberena, a veteran that's very well rounded, durable guy. Like, were you surprised when they let you go?
Um, I wasn't surprised. No. I kind of knew. You know what I mean? With it, three decision losses. You know what I mean? Um, that it's a business at the end of the day. They can play favorites if they want to, but at the end of the day, who's going to get people in those seats and who's going to get people to buy pay-per-view. You know, so I understood their point of view. And yeah, I mean, I had a hard niche, going in there, but I can't honestly say it wasn't anything I wasn't ready for. It was just more the fact that I didn't capitalize on the moment, like I said earlier. Those moments with Brian Barberena, like the Brian Barberena fight. I mean, it was a hell of a fight. It was a back and forth, and that was on 3 days' notice. So if I can do that on 3 days' notice against a UFC veteran, I should have, collapsed on both of those other fights with Johan and with Ian Gary. Um, I guess I just let the lights a little bit slow me down or make me cautious of making a mistake. But that's what I've learned. I made that mistake, and that's what I learned, and I won't make it twice.
Was it different for you making that walk to the UFC octagon for the first time? Was it like something you never experienced before because it is the pinnacle?
Actually, in the first fight that I did against Brian Barberena, it was actually in the Apex Center, and it was the most euphoric walk that I've had. I mean, I felt like you know destiny, evolving right there in front of me. You know what I mean? I can't say I had a lot of nerves. I can't say that I was, on edge or anything. I mean, it was the most peaceful walk that I've ever had to the cage. Um, so, that's how I know, I can be in that realm and dominate in that realm. It's just keeping my mind focused on, the game plan, which is finishing. A lot of people's game plan is winning. That can't be the game plan when you get to the UFC. When you get to the UFC, the game plan has to be finishing. And then when you get a win by decision, then you're like, okay, well, I'll take it. But it has to be finishing because that's what those other guys are thinking across the cage. I have to get a finish.
And that's what Dana and the rest of the UFC brass are looking for. They want exciting fighters, finishers. What's your take on Ian Gary after sharing the octagon with him? How good is he? Can he be a future champ?
Um, I'll put it this way: if he can be a future champ, then I can beat the future champ. You know what I mean? Um, and nothing to his skill set. I'm not saying he's terrible, but I'm saying in a game of inches, I could have edged that out. You know what I mean? Just being a little more forward and a little more reckless. He doesn't have the talent that a lot of fighters have at 170, which is that, that danger factor, that, oh, I can crack you and you can go to bed factor, that, oh, I'm coming after you and I'm going to break you with cardio and now you're going to have to survive in deep water factor. He doesn't do that. He kind of plays the point game. He wants to, okay, let me get a jab and then he has no jabs, or let me get 5 jabs and he only has 1 jab. He plays the point system very, very well. Like, and he does a very good job at it. You know what I mean? But it's not somebody that I can see, you know, people being afraid of, and I mean, maybe you don't have to be. I mean, look at Bilal, you know what I'm saying? Bilal does the same thing. He plays a point factor. I'm going to take you down 4 times in this round, and then I'll try to stand up. Or if I'm losing, I'm going to take you down for the next 2 rounds, and then, and so he can be, I say he can be a champion. He has a smart enough mind to do it. But he's not a dangerous champion, if that makes any sense.
I gotcha. I understand where you're going with that.
Mhm.
If it's not Shavkat next, who will be the guy to dethrone Bilal?
Oh, Shavkat will do it, but if it's not Shavkat, um, I mean, that top five, I can see anybody. I can see what was his name? Delaney, or what is his name? I can't think of his name.
Oh, Jack
Delahaye,
Jack Della Maddalena.
Jack Delaman. Yeah, I can see him definitely being the one to dethrone. He has what I was talking about, that pressure fighting. He has that. I know I'm going to be tired fighting this guy, and I don't want to walk into the 4th or 5th round with this guy. You know what I mean? So I can see him being at the top. So far as that, I mean, Kamar Usman. I mean, if he's going to stay at 85, or if he's not going to stay at 85, I mean, man, I can see him back in there. I mean, he's still not one to look over. Leon Edwards, I think he can get the shot back. I mean, in that fight that he lost against Bilal, I mean, they were fighting at 2 a.m. in England. You know what I'm saying? Like, how much would that throw you off if somebody told you, like, hey, yeah, you have a fight at 2 a.m. in the morning, rest up, we'll see you tonight.
Yeah.
So I can see, but being in a different predicament and being, somewhere where they can have a reasonable time to fight, I can see Leon Edwards coming back for that. So I mean, it's some possibilities out there.
Okay, great point. And I mean, the welterweight division has never been deeper than it is right now. No doubt about it, man. And Darren, you're still only 31 years old. Like, have you reached your peak yet? Like, are you still getting better? Do you feel like the best version of yourself is still in the future?
I feel like right now I am creating the best version of myself. I'm 31 years old, and I've never felt stronger. You know what I'm saying? I'm 31 years old, and my mind can break down fight game like crazy. And my speed is still there as it was. So I feel like this right now, being 31 years old, having the intelligence of the game that I've been in for 9 to 10 years. It's just making me evolve even better. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like right now I'm at the toppest that I'm gonna get, and it's gonna show in my next few fights. Definitely, people are gonna be like, "Wow, this." I mean, we've seen this kid, and he's been aggressive, and we've seen this kid, and he's been strong, but we ain't never seen him like this. And so I'm hoping to display that very well.
So obviously, your next opponent, Donavan Beard, that's what you're focused on right now. You got to get this win and beat him. But as far as the goals go, move forward, is it UFC or bust? Like, are you going to be happy if you don't make it back to the UFC? I mean, if you're fighting for PFL or one of these other big organizations and you become a champion, will that suffice? Like, will that keep you happy, or do you have to get back to the UFC? Because a lot of guys, they're not going to be happy if they don't make it back to the UFC.
Um, the goal right now in mind is to make it to UFC. That's first and foremost. that decision can't waver. But in the deeper aspect of it, I want to fight the best that there is, and I want to beat the best that there is. You know, if there's better fighters in PFL, or if that's the way I have to go to achieve the goals that I have to achieve. If there's better fighters in Bellator, which I know they're collided now, but if there's better fighters there in that organization, and I have to beat those guys and take those two, if I have to go to one champion and take that too, you know, that's what I want to do. I want to fight the pinnacle of fighters, the top of the top. I want to beat them, and I want to cement my name and legacy of, wow, he was probably one of the greatest MMA fighters to come out of the sport. And that's all. You know, I want them to know that if it's a tough guy, if it's a tough fight they're just talking about, I want them to mention my name. If it's somebody that is a killer, I want them to mention my name. If there's somebody who they can compare and like, oh, who's your top 10? I want them to mention my name. So regardless where that is, I'm going with it, which right now, as we see in America, it's the UFC. You know, it's the top of the top. So I have to reinvent myself. You know, right now in the UFC, I'm the guy who lost 3 decisions and who could have been a good fighter. You know, I want to go back there and be like, no, he is a good fighter. Like, he came back the second time, he showed out. It's kind of like Robbie Lawler. You know, Robbie Lawler came in the UFC the first time, got beat by Diaz. He left. They cut him, and then he came back, and it was just a reckoning. And then he ended up getting the belt. So I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just want to follow that same path and achieve heights that I want to achieve. This way, when I'm older, I can sit in a rocking chair and not be like, oh, I could have did it.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I love it, man. And look at someone like Yusuf Zalal. I've been fortunate enough to interview him a bunch. He was cut from the UFC, went on a win streak, much like yourself. Now he's back and he's fighting the number 9 guy in his division next, bypassing a lot of these guys that wanted one of those big fights on a chance with the chance to like really crack that top 10 and become one of those names. Does seeing like someone like what he's doing, does that give you like added motivation and hope?
Yes, it gives me a great hope, and it gives me great understanding that it can be done. You know, um, and and by any means, I'm not saying it's easy. I mean, you always get discouraged when you get to a place and then you don't do what you thought you were going to do, and then now you're back at the bottom, and it is very discouraging. And it is easy to just say, you know what, I did it. It wasn't for me. I'm going to go out of here. It's easy to say that, and it's 10 times harder to be like, I'm going to try and get there again. As crazy as it sounds, as high as that height was, you know, as unreachable as that goal seems, I'm going to go ahead and climb it, and I will get there. And as long as that positive mindset stays, and me seeing these guys do that, get out of the UFC, then get back in, and then become such a better fighter, it gives me just extreme hope that I know that I'll be there again.
What else are you doing now to pay the bills? Obviously, you know you're fighting as much as you can, but what else are you doing work wise to kind of live day to day?
Um, I own my own barbershop here in my hometown. So I mean, I'm just like every other regular Joe. I work a 40-hour week. Um, the the difference is I go to a job where my boss doesn't tell me what to do because I am the boss. You know what I mean? So it helps with training doing that way. I can do the time that I need to do for training and still go back and do haircuts and make money on a pretty even scale. It's not hours that I have to clock in from 8 to 5. You know what I mean? I can clock in pretty much whenever I want, as long as the haircuts are there to pay me. So it takes a lot of pressure off of me compared to all these other fighters who have to work a 9 to 5, and then now they have to figure out where to train in between.
Yeah, man, you're living the American dream. Owning your own business. That's fantastic. What's like your go-to haircuts or something that you specialize in? I usually like to keep it a little longer on the top and get a nice fade on the side. Is that something that you do a lot?
That's something that I do a lot right now. I think TikTok has all these young guys going crazy, and they all do the burst fade. So they like the little like fade in the middle and keeping it all long on top and the back, and they've been going crazy for that. So I've been doing that cut a lot. And then tapers. People love tapers. Nobody wants a real defined fade. There's like taper my sides and then trim me on the top. And hey, it's $30 either way you cut it. If I cut 2 inches off or if I cut 12, I mean, I'm getting the 30 out of you anyway.
Well, that's good, man. That's especially with everything going up nowadays, price wise. It's good that you're running a successful business and paying the bills, and you got a nice head of lettuce on you as well. I'm just so thankful that I have my hair because when I was like a young kid, I was terrified that I was going to be one of them unfortunate guys that lose their hair. I mean, some dudes look good with the bald head, but I don't think I'd be one of them. And I don't know how you
Yeah.
feel about that, but I'm very grateful
Yeah,
that I have my
I
hair.
got a couple buddies who, are quite some time younger than me, and they just went bald quick. I'm talking about maybe 23 years old. I mean, the hairline's at the back of their neck, you know what I mean? And it's a shame now they have to be bald heads, and people ask like, "Hey, are you 40?" And they're like, "No, I'm 28." And they're like, "Well, that's tough."
It's tough. It's gonna make up for it in other ways, my man. Let's
You know
let's
what I'm saying?
transition to Shamrock FC. This is your second time fighting for them. Obviously, this is one of the premier regional shows in the country. What is it like fighting for them? How much fun did you have the first time around? How much are you looking forward to this fight?
I fought for them actually two times before, or one other time before the last time. So this will be my third time, but it was in amateurs way back. But I have a good time. They put on a good show. They do all the lights, camera, action. They run it real well, real professional. Ran show here in the Midwest. And I had a great time. They put me up against a guy who they wanted to go to the UFC. That fight that he was supposed to fight me in was supposed to launch him into that, maybe contender series or short notice fight. I mean, we had Sean Shelby front row, for the main event, so it was,
Max.
yeah, Max Churov. He he was it was a tough opponent. He did real good. He just wasn't seasoned in the game. I was able to find holes and then exploit them and then exploit some more holes. And he wasn't able to readjust. He ran out of, my wife always says this, he ran out of tools in his bag. You know what I'm saying? He brought a hammer and a screwdriver to a fight that needed a wrench and pliers and all that other stuff. You know what I mean? So he has the tools. He just left some of them out of those fights. He had an easy road to me. Um, and then when he got to me, he thought it was going to be like all the others. And, that's the level difference, but it was a blast fighting for them. They do a good job. They take care of you. They're real helpful towards people. You know what I mean? Like towards fighters, if this is what you need, if this is what we can do for you, let us know. So I like fighting for this promotion, and it's here in my home state. You know what I'm saying? It's right here in the Midwest. So I'm not don't have to travel crazy or be there a week before or anything like that.
Do you watch your opponents' interviews that they do if they do them leading up to a fight?
I watch my fighters TikToks from 13 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how involved I am in them. I make sure that I know what they eat, breathe, sleep, and what else they do. You know what I mean? I get so close into my fighter's head that I want to walk in there and be like, oh, I've known this guy for years, and then it makes it just like music when you fight.
So did you see my interview with Max because he was pretty confident going into it against you?
Did see that interview with Max, and he was very, very, very confident and sharp the way he was. I'm going to finish him in the second round. They always tell me that this guy's going to be the next best guy. They always tell me that about all the guys I fight, and then I beat them. And I was thinking in my head, like, oh man, he doesn't even know. He's been taking a spoonful of peanut butter, boy, and this is not going to be that.
So I mean, if I was a guy like you, like in your shoes, fighting for a living, I would look for anything to put a chip on my shoulder, going into a fight, because you're going into what most people would be scared to death to do is hand to hand
Yeah.
combat with another human being. Do you look for all those angles? Because it seems like maybe that's what you do. Like you're looking for things to kind of put that added chip on your shoulder.
And I will say I do get kind of like motivation from hearing people talk like that. But I try not to create a chip. I try to, like, in my mind, I want to be the most calm and quietest in the ring, because that way I can think on my toes. When you create a chip, or you create aggression towards another fighter, it'll cloud your judgment a little bit, you'll go to, oh, let me just punch him, or let me do this so I can hit him hard, instead of what is he going to do next, or what can I make him do to get him to where I need to be. Um, but I mean, still, I guess maybe it's a slight chip because I do still create of kind of like a motivation, like, oh, he said that about me. Okay. Oh, he's probably telling his friends and his girlfriend when he goes home at night. He's probably telling her how he's gonna whoop my ass, or he's gonna knock me out, or I'm gonna make sure that that doesn't happen. I'm gonna make sure that he eat those words. So I do create that kind of mindset, but I do try to stay calm and collective when I'm in there.
What do you think of your upcoming opponent, Donavan Beard, 8-4? What I did notice about him is he's tall. He's got a long reach. I think 5 or 6 inches on you, according to Tapology. Anyways, like, is that the thing you got to look out for the most in this fight?
Um, Sometimes reach doesn't bother me too much. It's all about how a person uses it. I fought Ian Gary. He did a good job using his reach, and he didn't have a longer reach than me. We have the exact same reach, actually. He was taller than me, but we have the exact same reach. So it's all about how someone uses it. And I think he does a great job. He does a solid job with how he throws his 1-2s. He's real dependent on throwing that jab and throwing that cross, and he does a good job at it. Um, but I mean, I also see holes in his game. He doesn't seem like a strong fighter. He doesn't seem like an aggressive fighter. He'll actually wait for people to get aggressive with him so he can counter a lot. And I think that brings its own damages. You know what I mean? If you're not willing to, you know, make the tempo, somebody's going to create the tempo for you, and sometimes you won't be able to keep up with that tempo. And so I mean, he's I'm glad that I got that opponent. He's a good opponent to have. He fought uh, Bo Nickel in the Contender Series, so that's always a even he lost in the first 30 seconds, but that's always a good notch to put on your belt when you're fighting somebody that's been up there with some guys who have. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. You got
Oh
you.
yeah,
I
yeah,
got you. I'm
no
sorry.
worries. Yeah.
Who's been up there with some guys that are fighting in the big leagues. So it's always a good notch to put on your belt. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a good fight. Like I said, I'm always going in there to finish. That's where my mindset's at right now. So any way I can get a finish, I don't care if I get a finish in at third round and it's 4 minutes and 59 seconds before the bell rings. I'm going in there to do a finish. So yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm excited about fighting his caliber of fighter. I'm excited about you know distributing my skills against all types of fighters, including him. So I'm glad. I'm excited to see what he brings out of me for sure.
Will you be disappointed if you win another decision here?
Not disappointed. I won't be disappointed about winning the decision. Um, but I will maybe think that there's some things that we need to do harder or do more, or maybe there's some advantages we can get out of doing something different. But for right now, what I've been training in camp and how I've been training. I mean, finishes look like they'll come. And I mean, I had Max on the ropes a lot. Um, I'll give it to him. He has a hard head. I was cracking him with some stuff. I fed him like 4 or 5 knees, and he just didn't want to fold. And so that was a good thing. Um, but I won't be disappointed. But I would like that. I would like the finish. I would like to rack up. That's like you said. That's what Dana White wants. And in order to convince him even more why I should be there is I need to be finishing people.
If we don't see you back in the UFC after this fight, obviously, assuming that you do get the victory here, how many more do you think you need? Like, is it a number or is it more the quality of opponent?
Quality, I think. You know, um, I don't want to be out here racking up 10 more fights with guys who are 0-1 and 3-2. Quality, I think, is what turns heads. Because the higher the percentage of my opponent's winnings, it means the more in the spotlight that they are. People do MMA prospects and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like people know who they think is going to go into the UFC next. Those are the opponents that I want. Those are the opponents that I want to grab and hurt and beat and be like, oh, you thought he was going next? No, I'm next. And if they still don't see me, find another one. Boom, you thought he was going next? No, I'm next. Until they can't look away until they're like, well, we got to put him back in here because he's beating all the crap out of guys that we want to put in this freaking UFC. So
I love it, man. Well, I'm excited to see you back in action again, January the 18th, Shamrock FC 360. I can't be there in person, so let everyone know who can't be there in person how they can watch it online.
yes, you can go to shamrock.com, shamrockfc.com. They'll have a link for you there to go ahead and watch that. And then, maybe if you miss that and if you miss the night of the fights, I'm going to figure out which it is, but they broadcast it on TV like a couple weeks after the fight is over. So if you miss that, don't worry, you'll get a million chances to see it. And then if you miss that, 3 months later, you'll find me on YouTube, you look it up, and you'll be like, damn, he beat the shit out of that kid. And then we can watch it all like that. So,
Darian, great talking to you again, my man. Before we do get out of here, if there's anything you want to plug, any sponsors you have, anyone you want to thank, the floor is yours.
yeah, I want to give a shout out to a gym that I train at all the time, Jackson Wink, and then Jackson Wink Management, my management team. They do a great job of putting me as first priority and finding me fights. They know how close I am to getting back, so they make me first priority every time. I appreciate that. My coaches, Rob Hewlett, my wife, Carmen Smith, she does a great job of being a support system for me, keeps me going, make sure that I'm, fight ready at all times. I shout out my buddies. If you're ever in Missouri, if you're ever in Sedalia, Missouri, check out Lemir's Catfish. They do a great job of supporting me as well. The manager, Storm, he does a great job of supporting me, and also they have amazing seafood. And then I just shout out to God. You know what I mean? He's put me in the position that I'm in. Um, Jesus is the reason. You know what I mean? For anything that we do in life, we should look for Him first. So um, I can't not shout out Him. He's the only reason that I've been able to accomplish the things that I've accomplished. And He's allowed me to do that, and hopefully He continues allowing me to reach heights.